Hey, how's it going, everyone? Bass here. Hope everyone is having a great Labor Day weekend so far. So in today's video, I want to talk a little bit about this Packers defense and primarily how hype I am for this defense and how I don't think the NFL is ready for how good this defense is going to be. But before we get started, if you are new here and want more Packers news analysis and updates, please consider going down and clicking that subscribe button as well as turning on post notifications to not miss any of my videos. So looking at this defense on paper, most would say this is the most talented defense the Packers have had since that 2010 season, of course, where they won the Super Bowl. And this defense, some may say, could even be more talented than that defense. So starting down low in the trenches in the defensive line, this defensive line depth is just insane. Kenny Clark is an all-pro caliber defensive tackle. Dean Lowry just had arguably his best season as a Packer last year. Jarran Reed, that veteran signing Brian Gutekunst made, which could become another great veteran signing just like Devondre Campbell and Rasul Douglas last year. He's been super impressive in camp so far. He's actually been one of the best camp performers as a whole. TJ Slayton is seemingly making that second-year jump that some players tend to make, putting up good performances in this preseason, especially the 49ers game. He had a really good game. First rounder Devontae Wyatt, although he hasn't played much, has showed great flashes of dominance in the little bit he has played. And I don't think the Packers defensive line has truly had this much depth in a very long time. Last year, the depth was the likes of Tyler Lancaster, Kingsley Keke, and Abdullah Anderson. And let's face it, those guys were just not good. They were just guys on the defensive line, whereas the current depth of Jarran Reed, TJ Slayton, and Devontae Wyatt is miles above that depth. I have super high expectations of this defensive line to get to the quarterback and also be better at stopping the run. The Packers weren't great at stopping the run last year. Last year, they allowed the third most yards per carry at 4.7 yards per carry. I don't see that happening again. And in terms of rushing overall last year, the Packers defense in yards was actually the 11th best, and that's with a lot weaker unit than they have now. So to say the Packers are going to have a top 10 run defense isn't far-fetched, considering they only allowed the 11th most yards with that unit last year with the likes of Lancaster, Keke, and Abdullah Anderson. Now they have a much better defensive line unit and much better depth. It's just so much more talented. And I think their run defense and their pass rush from the defensive line unit will be much better. Moving on over to the edge position, a lot of people have worries about the depth in this edge room, and rightfully so. But at the top, Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith are super deadly. Rashawn Gary coming off his best season to date with 9.5 sacks and 47 pressures, and he's already a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year. Preston Smith had a really nice bounce back year after a rough 2020. He had 9 sacks and 28 pressures. Preston Smith is a super solid veteran pass rusher and a great partner in crime for Rashawn Gary. And overall, I just don't think the depth will be as bad as some people make it out to be. Kingsley Enagbare was a steal in this draft, in my opinion. He went in the 5th round. A lot of draft boards had him in the 2nd or 3rd round. The Packers snagged him in the 5th, and he's looked super solid in camp. In preseason, he had a little bit of a slow start, but towards the end in preseason and camp, he was looking very dominant, and I'm really excited for Kingsley Enagbare. I don't know how his rookie year is going to go. I think he's going to be a pretty solid rotational guy. I don't know what that means in terms of snaps for him, considering the Packers also have Tipa Galeai and John Garv, who have more experience and snaps in the NFL, so the Packers might go their way more than Enagbare, but obviously if he produces and plays well, he'll get his snaps. And like I said, he looked really good and dominant in the preseason games and training camp. Tipa Galeai himself was, solid in the limited snaps. We saw him in last year with 34.2% of snaps, as was John Garvin with 36.4% of snaps. Rotational guys, edge guys usually play around 35% of snaps, considering the starters play around 65% of snaps. So I think these 3 guys can definitely hold that down. Although they could certainly add a veteran, sign a veteran player to add to that edge room like they did last year with Whitney Merciless, that wouldn't hurt. As for inside linebacker, I think this is one of the most talented inside linebacker groups in the NFL. I don't know if I've ever been able to say that as a Packers fan. This is a nice breath of fresh air for sure for the inside linebacker room. Devondre Campbell coming off his best season ever, earning an All-Pro and becoming the center of this Packers defense. First round pick Quay Walker has the athleticism and speed to make an impact at inside linebacker to partnering up with Devondre Campbell. Chris Barnes is a starter capable linebacker and would likely start at inside linebacker on many other teams in the NFL if he were to be on them. Isaiah Mcduffie is seemingly also making a second-year jump. 7th-round rookie last year out of Boston College, has looked super fast and explosive this training camp and preseason. He's a great 4th linebacker to have as depth. Likely will be mainly a special teams guy this year, but if an injury happens, I do trust Isaiah Mcduffie to be a solid depth linebacker. Like I said, this preseason, he's looked fast. He's made a lot of tackles. He's been reading the plays and the offense better, I think, than he did last year. He's looked really, really solid. Really hyped to have him as the 4th guy. Overall, I'm just super excited to finally have an extremely talented group of inside linebackers. How they'll use Quay Walker excites me the most out of all of these guys. He's super versatile and can do so much. Not to mention, Quay Walker could definitely play some edge this year, which we were just talking about edge. And, these guys play 35%. The rotational guys play 35% of snaps. Quay Walker could add into that equation. He played some edge at Georgia. I've seen it a little bit in training camp and preseason, so they could definitely use him in so many different ways. He's super versatile, rushing the passer through the A-gap, over the edge, covering tight ends, covering running backs. Quay Walker's super versatile, and I'm really excited to see how Joe Barry ends up using him. And having great cover linebackers like Devondre Campbell and Quay Walker will allow the Packers to play base defense a little bit more, which in turn will help their run defense game. As for the cornerbacks, I truly do think this cornerback room is the best cornerback room in the NFL. A close second would be to Miami, but I give the edge to Green Bay here. The Packers' pass defense was ranked 10th last year, and that's with Jair Alexander, their best cornerback, only playing in 4 games. Jair is back, and Jair is one of the best, if not the best, cornerbacks in the NFL. Having him back is big enough, not to mention the great rookie season from Eric Stokes. He stepped up after being thrown right into the fire after Jair Alexander got hurt, only allowing 49.7% completion percentage and a 71.3 quarterback rating. The veteran signing of Rasul Douglas provided huge last year after Jair Alexander's injury. He stepped up huge with 5 total interceptions, including 2 touchdowns in those interceptions, allowing a 50% completion percentage and a 44.5 quarterback rating. If Rasul Douglas is considered the 3rd cornerback in this group, he's easily the best 3rd cornerback in the NFL. He's likely to play a lot of slot this year, allowing Jair Alexander and Eric Stokes to remain outside, which I think he will do great at. I think he has the body size and physicality to play there. They also used him a little bit this training camp at safety, so if there's an issue there, an injury there, or they just need to put him back at safety for any reason, I think he can do that as well. And then the 4th and 5th cornerbacks in Shamar Jean-Charles and Keyshawn Nixon, although they are young, you won't see them on the defense too much unless the Packers come out and dime or something of that sort, unless there, of course, are injuries, but hopefully there are not. But Shamar Jean-Charles has looked pretty good this training camp. Keyshawn Nixon has looked good in the slot and also a core special teamer. Moving on to the last position at safety, this is the one position I am a little bit worried about, primarily with the depth. Now, Adrian Amos obviously is great. He's one of the best cover safeties in the last 3 seasons. He's played great ever since coming to Green Bay. Darnell Savage, although he did have a bad year last year, in my opinion, he has all the tools to become a good safety in this league, and I think he will have a bounce-back year. But after those two, the depth is just super thin. The Packers are 1 injury away from having a big problem at safety. Donald Leavitt has the most defensive career snaps out of the depth, but he's been a liability when he's on the defense for the Raiders in years past, and we saw a bit of this in Game 1 with a blown coverage easy touchdown for the 49ers, so that's definitely an issue there. The new signing in Rudy Ford at safety was a good one in my opinion. He had his best year on defense for the Jaguars last year after mainly being a special teams player his entire career, so he could certainly step up, but it's still a question mark. Tariq Carpenter, who they drafted in the 7th round, isn't really a true safety in my opinion, and I wouldn't trust him playing deep safety an entire game. He's likely to remain mainly a special teams player this first year. So then it's basically up to Rudy Ford and Donald Leavitt to replace the snaps that the Packers gave Henry Black last year, which was 24.3% of snaps, and Henry Black wasn't good on defense by any means, so hopefully one of these guys can do better than him. But again, it's just one big question mark, and overall the biggest question mark I have for this defense as a whole. But other than that, this defense is certainly loaded with talent and potential, and I don't think a lot of fans around the NFL truly see that yet. But they most certainly will, as I see this defense becoming a top 3 defense in the NFL this year, or even the best defense in the NFL when this season is finished, hopefully bringing the Packers to yet another Super Bowl. But I want to hear your thoughts about this defense down in the comments below. What are you most excited about on this defense? Is it the defensive line depth, the inside linebacker depth, this great cornerback room? Just comment that down below. But that about does it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, please leave a like down below. It supports my channel a ton. But I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching, and as always, go Pack Go.